just quickly, I wanted to go over this BBC article where they talk about how two British Israeli women were killed in a West Bank shooting. It's actually three, right? So basically, you had a Palestinian man, once again, acting completely on his own, doesn't belong to any group or any faction or anything, and he basically shot up a car where there was a mother and her two daughters, and all of them are dead now. So it's actually three British Israeli women who were killed in this West Bank shooting, okay? So let's see what they say here. They say that this was north of the Jordan Valley, and that these sisters were in their 20s, and their 48-year-old mother and them were immigrants from the UK, right? And the response from the Foreign Office was that they're saddened by the news. Now, look, man, no one is taking pleasure in such a story, but I couldn't help but notice that this family moved from London. It says it in the article. They moved from London to the West Bank. Now, the West Bank is illegally occupied by Israel. Okay, so there's no way to say this is Israel. No. It's Palestine. Even if you accept this ridiculous partition plan, right? Even if you accept it, this is still Palestine, and it's illegally occupied by Israel. So, I'm just stunned by this. Like, you have British citizenship. That is such a privilege, right? To be British born, because I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think on the black market, or depending which black market you go to, it's the most coveted passport in any black market. Yes. Why would you move from London, which is relatively safe compared to the West Bank, and insist on living on somebody else's land, on Palestinian land, and risk your entire family? And why would you do that? I just don't understand this. I think it's a symptom of such a sickness of this religious and political extremism, which is Zionism, right? Because here they say they're British Israeli because they happen to have both passports, right? What do you think most Israelis are? They're people who've come from outside, right? They could be Moroccan, they could be Australian, they could be whatever, Ukrainian. Just go look up the list on Wikipedia of every Israeli prime minister. I think every single one of them is from Eastern Europe. Either themselves or their parents or grandparents. Every single one, Eastern European, right? So Ukraine, Poland, Russia, whatever. What? And in this case, I mean, they've gone from London to Palestine on somebody else's land on an illegal settlement. Every single Israeli settlement in the West Bank is illegal, whether you like it or not. And risked and why would you do this, right? It's so tragic for everyone involved. But what's even more tragic is the Palestinian, because a Palestinian doesn't have this opportunity to move from the West Bank to London, right? In reverse. You're not going anywhere. You don't even have statehood if you're a Palestinian. You literally don't even have a state, right? There's no Palestinian member state at the UN. Even if you do have the travel documents, it's not a proper passport. And every single port you go into, whether it's a seaport or an airport, they will give you shit, and they will look at your document. They'll have no clue what it is, right? And you will feel discriminated against, and they'll just bust your balls. It's how it is. And that's if you have a visa to even go anywhere, right? Like, good luck getting a visa to go to the United Kingdom. Never mind moving there and bringing your family with you from Palestine. So you can see the reverse, how unbalanced this situation is, how Palestinians are stuck because this is their land. It's Palestine. They're not going anywhere, whether they like it or not. But you have people from Europe, Zionist settlers, Israeli settlers, who have multiple passports. They have citizenship from multiple countries, and they still insist on going to Palestine and taking somebody else's land, and even if it means losing their entire family. I mean, this is, like I said, it's so emblematic of the sickness of Zionism. How they just insist on doing this. Like, fuck you, by hook or by crook, we are taking your land. And that is the story of Israel. That is Israel in a nutshell. That is Zionism in a nutshell. It's a bunch of Europeans going to Palestine and insisting on living there on somebody else's land, even if it means putting themselves and their own family at risk. And you know, the Palestinians don't have a choice. They have to fight because they're living under occupation, under military rule. They're being treated like shit. They can't go anywhere. You know, whether you like it or not, you're in that environment. You have to resist somehow. But the Israelis, they have a choice, and they still choose to come do this and oppress others and put themselves at risk. It's really a tragic story, but it's the story of Zionism and how you know, how sick it is. That's end of story. One last thing that I would add is, when did this shooting take place? It took place right after the Israelis were going into Al-Aqsa and beating up worshippers, right? Now, like I said, this is not the only time you've had a Palestinian, again, just randomly acting on his own and not affiliated with any group or any faction in response to an incident or another incident, you know, where the Israelis were either bombing Gaza or, you know, brutalizing people in Jerusalem. And my point here is that the Israelis now, they have to worry about young Palestinian men in their, you know, their teens or their 20s or 30s carrying out these resistance operations, right? And the thing is, how do you stop them? How do you find out where the next one is going to happen? You can't. You can't. It's like playing whack-a-mole, right? From the Israelis' perspective, it's like playing a game of whack-a-mole. But my point here is that this shows you how much of a burden and how upsetting and how literally terrifying the Israeli occupation is to Palestinians, that they randomly are mounting these resistance acts or these acts of resistance against the Israelis. And like I said, they don't have military training. These are not soldiers. They don't belong to any group. They have no affiliation with anyone. The only thing that they have in common is that they are living under Israeli occupation and military rule. That's it. That is it. But of course, you'll never hear that on the news because they want to act like this is not a factor. It's happening in a vacuum. It's just a random Arab who shot up some, you know, Jewish settlers because he hates Jews. That's the narrative they want to feed you, right? No, it's much simpler than that. It's just, you know, people don't like living under military rule. That's it. They don't like living under a dictatorship and under occupation. It's really that simple. It doesn't mean you necessarily agree with what they're doing or you cheer this on. But if you're explaining politics and you're trying to chronicle what's happening, you have to mention this. It's not something that exists outside of Palestine. No, it's something central to the Palestinian issue. It's not a coincidence that this happened while there were rockets coming in from Gaza, while there were rockets coming in from Syria, while there were rockets coming in from South Lebanon. These things are not a coincidence. Do you understand? That's my point.